So this video is going to cover item ducts, routing, and filtration from thermal expansion. I've noticed on the forums a lot of people seem to only be using it for very limited options, and there's a lot of options people haven't fully explored, so I'm going to cover a couple of those in this episode, and hopefully it helps somebody. So I've set up a couple of different scenarios here. I'm also going to cover some stuff about energy. So this is, people frequently ask for my Tetris engine setups. This is the current baseline of my Tetris engines for 1.6 with TE. You can see there's a conduit in the center, magmatic dynamos around it. Works out fairly well. I like this setup because it very nicely allows you to run fluid ducts to both sides of this, which gets all 4 engines filled, and RedNet cables from MFR, which allows you to toggle it on or off. This tesseract controls both energy, it sends energy out, and it receives lava. Which currently the lava generation here is this creative tank with some lava in it, and a tesseract. This tesseract is also receiving power, it's receiving items, and it's sending fluid to anybody that wants it. This is a much bigger version of that small engine setup over there. This goes all the way down to bedrock, and when I flip this, all 256 plus or minus 10 or 20 magmatic engines come on and start filling with power. Don't actually need that much power because yeah, I don't have that many things to run off it, but hey, well, whatever. Over here we've got a quarry set up. This is the best way I've found so far to set up a tesseract to power a quarry. This tesseract is receiving power and it's sending items. If you put the conduit on the top, the quarry will output directly to this tesseract, sending the items along to wherever you have items being received, and the energy goes along and powers the quarry, just like it would if it was running off MJ. Tesseracts no longer move MJ. Conduits will not move MJ. You can put a buildcraft engine or a forestry engine, all this you want, and it will go nowhere. However, if you connect a conduit from a RF energy source, such as a tesseract or a dynamo, and you connect it, the conduit, to a machine that requires MJ, it will convert the RF to MJ automatically without you having to do anything. No needing to twist the conduits or anything like that. So, yeah. That's how that works. And this thing is probably going to take a while to actually function, which is fine because I'm going to show a few other filtering things. So, item ducts, when placed down on something, it says a pneumatic server needs to be installed for control. In this case, I'm going to be putting this over here and connecting it to this side. Just right-click the conduit with this. This installs filtration on all sides of the item duct. So if I were to put here and take a look at this one already has a filter, so we're good. Currently, this build uses, you have to, the default is 32 for the stack size instead of 64. And the default is high redstone signal. I'm setting that to disabled on this. Now in here I have several different wood types and some ore types and some pulverized stuff. We'll get into why I have that in a minute. The filtration system set up for TE on these filters is, as I said, really powerful. You have whitelist, which means only these items, or blacklist, which means any item except the items you've put in here. Then you have oredictionary. Oredictionary means that if, say, you have multiple types of copper ore, like in this case, we'll go here, we'll go like this, and we'll just look in here. We've got copper ore from Tinkers. It's ore copper, ore copper thermal expansion, ore copper mariculture, ore copper Tinkers construct, and ore copper forestry. If I were to put copper ore in here and set it to use oredictionary, it would pull any of these coppers in because they all use the oredictionary. That means that you don't need to put one of each type of ore in here. So like this one has a copper ore in it. If I were to plop a chest down here, and we'll go ahead and we'll just set this up to disabled. And let's see, the copper ore that I have installed in this one is from thermal expansion. So let's just throw, say, some copper ore from mariculture in here. Now, obviously I probably ought to connect it down here so it takes a little bit less time. But as you notice, the copper ore from mariculture has gone into the pulverizer that has the thermal expansion copper attached to it. Go ahead and connect this up here so that things can transfer a little faster. Now, you'll notice the copper pulverizing from here came over here and went into this furnace. This is where the metadata comes in very handy. Most mods, not all mods, but most mods when doing ore, dusts, and ingots use the same ID and a different meta value. So, if we take a look at pulverized dusts from thermal expansion, you'll notice that the ID is 20264 for iron, 20264:1 for gold, etc., etc. So, if you just put pulverized iron in here and nothing else in the filtration, and you tell it to ignore metadata, it will pull all of these, any of these. Any one of these that gets stuck in the system will get pulled there. All of these filters are set the same. Ignore metadata, and they have the iron. This means that you can route all pulverized items or dusts from IC2 or whatever to one location just by putting the item that you've got in there and telling it, I want everything that has this item ID in here regardless of what the meta value is. This is really nice, at least in my opinion, because this means I don't need to fill all of these filters with everything that could possibly be put in there. It's going to do it for me. The same thing works for ores. If I tell this to ignore metadata, all thermal expansion ores use the same ID. See, they're all 2001, just different meta. So put that in there, and the lead winds up in this pulverizer. The filter says silver, but I've told it I don't care what the metadata is, only pay attention to the ID. And so it will pull it in. I've also got it set to use the oredictionary, so if I were to have a silver ore from a different mod, like say factorization, it would automatically get pulled in as well. But if I want to keep it to just silver, and only silver from either thermal expansion or factorization, I leave it as use metadata, use oredictionary, and it will only pull silver ores, and it will no longer pull the lead ore. This doesn't just apply to ores either. Interestingly enough, this also applies to logs. If you take a look at logs in your NEI, should probably type that correctly, log, you'll notice that oak wood is 17, spruce wood is 17:1, etc. for vanilla. Forestry woods all use the same couple of IDs with meta values. Biomes of plenty all use the same IDs with meta value, etc., etc. that means that if I want to tell this that it should get all wood, all I need to do is put one log from each of these mods in here and tell it to ignore meta value. Then it will pull anything with those IDs. You'll want to double check, make sure you've got one from each of the IDs, because forestry uses like 3. Thaumcraft uses 1. Biomes of Plenty uses 2 or 3. But it's much easier to get all of the logs of a type in there. Another thing that works on this principle, planks. All of the planks from vanilla, forestry, extra utilities, Thaumcraft, Biomes of Plenty, etc. are all single item IDs with meta value telling you this is a plank, and then the meta value tells you what type of wood that plank is made out of. So if I had, say, a tree farm and a quarry, etc., I could tell it I want all ores to go into this one, all planks to go into this one, and all logs to go into this one. The ore method of doing this is pretty simple. You just need one ore from each mod. The only exception is Tinker's Construct, where Tinker's Construct uses one ID for nether ores and one ID for surface ores. But as long as you have one ore from each ID range in here, it will pull all of them. So, because I say use oredictionary, this is going to pull anything that says copper. This will pull anything that says tin. Because I say ignore metadata, this will pull any thermal expansion ore. This one will pull any mariculture ore. This one will pull any Tinker's Construct nether ore. That will pull any gravel ore. And these two will take care of the iron and gold, which are separate IDs. You don't need to put every single ore type in. You can just put one ore of each ID value from a mod in and tell it, I don't care what the meta is. And it will say okay. This also works on ingots. In this case, I have marked this as being the one that should get all Tcon ingots, which is Tinker's Construct, which is any ingot that has 14276 as its ID, regardless of meta value. And this one should get all thermal expansion ingots. You can test this type setup by going in here, and we see I've marked this with silver, and I've marked this one with manulian. So let's grab some cobalt and some ardite, and we'll grab ourselves some inderium and some electrum. And we're going to throw that in this little chest that I've already got set up for doing some stuff. This has planks, logs, ores, etc. I may have forgotten one or two things, but we will find that out pretty quickly. Because over here, I have this set up on a dense item duct, which means that as far as this system is concerned, this block's like 10,000 blocks away from everywhere else. So this will be the absolute last place the system tries to send it, and it will only send it there if there's nowhere else for it to go. We'll go ahead and start sending stuff out. And as you notice, all the Tinker's Construct ores end in the Tcon chest. The thermal expansion ingots end up in the thermal expansion chest. The ores are going into the correct system. We'll find out in a minute if I've forgotten anything when we look at our chest over there. Planks have gone into the plank system. And logs have gone into the log system. And nothing has made it into the we don't have a place for it system. Well, some cobble is about to make it in there because I don't actually have anything set up for doing cobble. Well, we can fix that though. Because after all, we don't need any cobble right now. So let's just grab ourselves a nullifier, which is another thermal expansion useful device. And we're going to go ahead and, for this purpose, for ease, we're just going to put a block here. I don't really want things nullified just yet. And I'm going to go ahead and put this here. And again, we're going to put a pneumatic servo on here. And we'll just take the cobblestone for this. And we're going to tell this, hey, you, go ahead and whitelist the cobble We need to go ahead and set the bottom to blue so it has somewhere to go. And we will set this to vacuum so that it will start pulling them up. It should start pulling them up. Yep, there. Just took it a minute. Now then, it's saying, hey, look, I've got room. We can also tell it that, you know, we don't want gravel or dirt because we don't care about those. And we can go up here and we say gravel, dirt. And that stuff will all get voided. And the only thing that will end up over here is non-gravel, non-dirt, non-cobble that we actually, like, you know, want. So this tells us where the items are that I haven't actually put in this very basic sorting system. So over here I have another chest, the one we were setting up earlier, with some stuff. In here we've got it set up to take wood. Now let's go ahead and tell this to go like that. Of course, some items have already ended up in here, but that's okay. Now you can see that it's going along. Wood is gone in here. It'll make planks and sawdust. The furnace the furnaces are cooking up the ingots of the various types. Of course, we've got a little bit of an overflow issue, but that's okay, because what ends up happening is those dusts come down here to where I've given them some barrels that they can go into. Oh, and I should probably... Well, the thermal expansion ingots are apparently bypassing and just going there. That's fine. Don't mind. Nothing's going over here, so we're good on that. And we're going to go ahead and break the hat. Because, yeah, the sawdust will end up in your thermal expansion ingots because all thermal expansion items are on the same one. It's little things like that you'll have to play around with and keep an eye on to see what exactly is going to occur. Since thermal expansion's item IDs are all the same and it's meta that it's looking at for that specific setup. But see, all the ores are in here. Planks are all going in there. Logs have all gone in there, except for the ones that I already had in barrels. And now, I've got red net down here, and there's a reason for that. Underneath this row of barrels, because these are all things that are eventually going to want to be processed somehow, I have set all of these item ducts to require redstone signal. If I flip this on, it then goes ahead and pulls everything out of those barrels, and will send it off to be sorted to wherever it needs to go, whether that's a processing machine or another sorting location. Whatever. I'm going to go ahead and set this one to green so that things want to go up there. As you can see, item ducts are very smart. They know where the stuff needs to go, and they're going to sort it up amongst it. Now I could also go ahead and, if I wanted, I could set this one to pulling ores out, and that will ship those off to the pulverizers. See, it doesn't matter which direction it's moving in. The item duct knows where it needs to go. And each side of the item duct can be set differently. Not the redstone signal. The redstone signal on is going to be the same no matter which side you're on. You can't have one side want redstone and the other side not, because, well, it's one block still. It's still in one block. There's no way to put redstone on one side. So this side is now disabled as well. However, the filtration can be different. See, this one has a stack size of 32, and this one has a stack size of 64. And I could put different items in those. So considering the average item duct in a line is going to have one in front and one behind it, you can conceivably have up to 4 different filtration things. But this makes it very easy for you to say, I want all logs in one chest, or instead of, putting it in a chest, you could set up different sections of your factory. A wood processing section, an ore processing section, a section that combines ingots into blocks. And you can tell it, hey, I want you to do it this way. Send all of my quarry stuff over here this way, and all of my other stuff that way. Just remember that when you want to do this type thing, you want to turn off metadata. And again, this is not just thermal expansion. Most mods follow this type convention where their ores are 1 ID or 2, or in the case of metallurgy, like 6, because there's so many of them. And then it has a metadata value. So basically, the first ID says, this is my ore block, and then that little number that comes after the colon is telling the game what type of ore. Is it copper? Is it mithril? Is it, titanium? So as you can see, this is very, very powerful. And very, very fun to abuse. This works out very nicely. And I think that was everything I wanted to cover on that. My item ducts are working. My item ducts are sorting quite nicely. This is actually slightly more powerful in my experience than AE's precision export buses. If I wanted to set up an AE system here, I could then just run cables along and let the AE system sort it. But as long as you have the iron and redstone to make a servo, this works on the fancy ducts or the cheap ducts. These are just the fast, fancy ones that are a little bit more expensive since they use glowstone and hardened glass as opposed to the regular. But you can do this as simply as using the basic opaque item duct, which is just some tin and lead. You won't be able to see them, the pretty blocks going through, which admittedly is a bit sad, but oh well. Less I. And I think that covers everything. And that should hopefully help some of the people I've seen on the forums wondering exactly how you can manage intricate sorting with item ducts. It's kind of, well, really, really interesting and fun. So play with those settings. The other thing you can do is you can use it for bees. I forgot about that. NBT is the data that you're going to find on bees. That's what makes those 2 different forestry bees not count as the same bee. So you could conceivably use this for forestry routing for bees. Because if you tell it to pay attention to NBT data, then it's going to put exactly the type bee it wanted, because that NBT data is the genetics of the bee. So go out, experiment, play. Just keep in mind, whitelist, blacklist, meta, which is the number that comes after a colon on an item ID, oredictionary, which is what it's registered as, and it's not just OR that has oredictionary. Many things have oredictionary. Logs have oredictionary. I can't even think of all the things off the top of my head that have word dictionary names. But if you turn on word dictionary options in NEI plugins, you'll be able to see all of the different things that have word dictionary names and what they're word dictionaried as, which then lets you move things around much, much nicer with this. And then your last option is NBT. That's the stuff that makes things like bees completely unique from generation to generation with the genetic data, as opposed to a forestry bee is a forestry bee is a forestry bee. That lets you do more precision breeding techniques. And as you can see again, tesseracts are very good at moving energy, fluid, and items at the same time. You no longer need to have one for each. Works well. You probably don't need quite as massive an energy setup as I have for this, though, because, well, you don't. Yeah, that should be everything. Have fun. Good luck. Play more. Make big build things. Build big things. Whichever, whatever.